So I'm going to talk about why radio is the coolest event in speech, because it totally is. A little bit about where radio was before and where we're going with it. Some hosting logistics for radio, troubleshooting during the tournament, and then I'd like to get some thoughts and express some of my own opinions about where radio is going to go if we do virtual tournaments. Again, not going to cover coaching. Dakota McCoy has a great workshop planned at noon, and he's going to cover all of the coaching stuff for radio, so be sure to check that out. All right. Radio is by far the coolest event in speech because it's so unique when you compare it to the other events. Again, just real basic information. The kid is in one room, judge is in a completely different room. So you've got those kids that maybe don't like being in front of other people. This really is the event for them. Let's take a look a little bit about how it started and where it is. And Brent, I know that you've got some information about middle school that maybe you could share and how it's a little different too. And at the high school level with radio, it used to be this strictly limited prep sort of event. They go to the tournament, they get their information, and then they have to put it together right there on the spot. So we made some changes to how radio is run at the high school level. So now kids can prepare some of their stuff in advance, which allowed our radio contestants to double, which they could not previously do. So that really helped to grow the numbers in radio, since then you weren't just pegged just to do radio, you could do other stuff too, which was cool. So today we've not really changed a whole lot. It's been the same. It's been this way for a couple of years now. I still don't think that radio is perfect. I think a lot about what are the skills that we're actually trying to cultivate in our kids. Is it just about vocal delivery? Are we doing critical thinking? Is it about creative writing and creative language or descriptive language? And what other sort of skills are we really trying to make sure that our kids are getting out of doing radio? And as we sort of get these goals and they become clearer to us and we sort of settle on what they are, the event's going to change and adapt because we want to be sure to cultivate those ideas into the kids. So that could be like, maybe there'll be a round that's podcasting in the future, or figure out a way that if we do a virtual tournament, maybe they actually interview somebody, and that's part of how they're evaluated too. So I think those opportunities are sort of endless when it comes to what this might look like and how we might go on with that. All right. So I'm kind of focusing this more on if you're hosting, some special considerations for radio, because it is so unique and different. You do have to make sure you've got some things on your radar so that you can be successful at hosting and running a radio event. So if you're going to host, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of all coaches across the state of Indiana, thank you so much for hosting. We have so few tournaments coming up this year that anybody who agrees to host, we're just so thankful for those opportunities to bring kids to compete. My biggest piece of advice, and I've been coaching and hosting tournaments for a long time, do not think that you have to do everything on your own. One of the biggest things that you can do, that you can ask your sort of local veteran coaches to help you out with, are prompt preparation. So when I host, I'll ask somebody else to do, some other coach from another school to come up with the discussion artifacts for us. So another coach will do impromptu. Laura always does extemp. I don't know why she always gets stuck with that, but I appreciate it a lot. And then radio prompts are another one that you can have other people help you with. This community is absolutely outstanding and incredible when it comes to helping new people who are hosting. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask if you need help with anything. People are more than willing to help out with that. All right, so after having said that, maybe you're the person that someone local asked to make the prompts, or you're just like, dude, I really want to do these radio prompts. So what all goes into this? So Brent, this is something else too that's a little different, I think, with the high school versus the middle school. And we can chat about this too. So some tips for the prompts: you got to make sure you know what the different rounds are. There's the news program, and that's the one that's prepared in advance. So it's the news copy that if it's a normal season tournament, the coach and the kid will actually pick out their news stories and put that together. But at state and sectionals at that level, they give you the news copy that you have to use. Music genres for the artist, song, lead in, lead out. So the kid has to sort of pretend like they're a DJ and they're introducing the next song that's coming up, and then doing a break for the commercial, and then a break with the news and all of that. So it kind of flows together with that news program. And then the original commercial should be about a minute of the news program. One thing on that, I was flying to Texas to see my sister for Thanksgiving several years ago. And I'm sitting on the plane and I pull the magazine out of the back of the seat that's in front of me. And it's that Sky Mall magazine that maybe some of you are familiar with. And Sky Mall has some of the weirdest, quirkiest stuff. And I've actually been using Sky Mall and skymall.com to come up with commercial ideas for radio prompts when I'm asked to do those. They have just really cool like electronic gadgets, and it even has a picture and like a description of what it is and how much it costs. So doing that original commercial prompt and using SkyMall has been hugely helpful in coming up with some cool stuff. So that's my secret. If you've seen any of the commercial prompts I've come up with, it's likely been from SkyMall. The on the spot, typically we'll pull those prompts off of a week in pictures section from a popular national news website, CNN, MSNBC, USA Today. All of those have some sort of week in pictures, and we'll usually use that for the on the spot. On the editorial, again, an opinion-based prompt. So coming up with something that's controversial in nature. Again, Dakota is going to go in at noon talking about tips on coaching, but I'm going to let one slide in here. When you are coaching editorial, you don't want your kids to use their 2 minutes to talk about the pros and cons of it and then make their decision. I think it's better to tell them to pick a side and then develop that and support it. And that's going to work out a lot better, I think. And then the radio program is at state only, and it's basically a combination of all of those things. They just put everything together with new news copy. So when you're hosting your own seasonal invite or your own seasonal tournament, you can do it however you want. At most 4 straight round tournaments, they'll just have straight up the news program will be all 4 of those rounds. Sometimes they mix it up and they'll do the news program for 3 and then an on the spot for the last round. But it's rare to see, at least in the last couple of years, it's been rare to see someone do a 30-minute prep round in a normal tournament. It's not unheard of, but it doesn't happen a whole lot. So it really just depends on what you have available to make that work for you in your tournament. All right, so you've gotten some cool prompts. What do you do next? You need to make sure you post the news program information on SpeechWire. It's been standard that we do this on Monday night prior to the tournament. However, if you do it like at noon or 3 o'clock on Monday, you'll have a lot of coaches that are very thankful because then they can have the opportunity to actually work with their kid Monday night on radio and getting that prepped. But for sure, like before 6 o'clock or so Monday night is when that stuff should be posted. If you do any sort of limited prep sort of stuff, you want to make sure that you have plenty of copies of those prompts at your tournament. You want to make sure that the competitor has one, and of course the judge should have one as well. If you do choose to do those 30-minute prep rounds, you want to make sure you have some extra space. You'll need a radio prep room, and then also someone to help you supervise and coordinate that space because you're going to be busy hosting. So you want to give that responsibility off to someone else. So make sure you make extra copies for that supervisor too. I kind of finished the prompt part. Are there any questions about that or any comments from people that have hosted this before? I've got a big screen with the chat up here and I don't see anything, but feel free if you got any questions. Everything pretty good so far? Sweet. I see the thumbs up. All right. So maybe I got ahead of myself a little bit. We've talked about the prompt creation, but logistically, what does this actually look like? So when you're running radio at your tournament, you need to make sure that you have enough space so that you can have the radio contestant and a radio judge in 2 different rooms that are pretty close to each other. This often means getting really creative and maybe using like a department sort of room or an office that has smaller like breakout rooms next to it. I used to use, when I was at Jeff, we used the choir and band practice rooms. They worked really well for this, so that you essentially just need to have one person in each of the rooms for the most part. So those smaller rooms work really well. You want to make sure you have enough microphones, and preferably ones that don't have on-off switches. So ones that will just stay on. Mic table stands are really helpful too. Enough cabling for all of it. Enough speakers or monitors for, and again, this is for roughly half of the number of sections in your tournament. So if you need 4 sections of radio, you're going to need it set up for at least 2 speaking rooms and 2 judge rooms. So, and I'll get into why here in just a minute. A sound mixer to plug everything in and test all of it is going to be important. Gaffer's tape is good so that nobody trips or pulls anything out during the tournament. I highly recommend you make friends with your school's auditorium manager, the band or choir director, theater teacher. They can really help you out in getting all of the materials that you might be missing or needing for the tournament. Am I missing any technical equipment that anyone else can think of? Or does that sound pretty good? All right. All right, so you've got the prompts in the space. So what happens next? Setting up radio and speech wire, and to know how middle school sort of sets this up too, if they use speech wire or something else. It's a little different than the other events. Since it's shorter, they have the 5-minute target speaking time, so you technically can double flight radio. So a judge will evaluate 2 sections at the same time that the other judges at the tournament will be judging just 1 section. So that's why you only need half of the material, so that you can actually have that kind of go, one right after the other. Setting it up in SpeechWire is pretty easy. There are options to do like a round 1A and a round 1B. And that helps out, and timing wise, it gets everything sort of situated that way. I wanted to have like screenshots here as to what that actually looks like, but I forgot to ask Ben in advance to have a demo so that I could do those screenshots. So I apologize. It's basically like a little column that has these little check boxes in them, and you'll just want to check the radio ones first and then click run or create schematic, and that way it will automatically assign the one judge to 2 different sections. If you forget to do it, it's okay. You just have to go back, double check the schematic, and make sure that everything is there correctly when it comes to the judges. Might be forgetting something. I see something in the chat. Middle school use in-room computers with projectors and mics. Oh, that's cool. That's a good idea. Yeah, that's actually, I was going to talk about some other alternatives as well here in just a second, but that's a really good idea too. I'd even thought about like people that don't have any equipment at all. If your school has phones, like you could have somebody and just put like, you need to dial 101 and the judge is in the other one and they answer it and just listen to it. There are lots of different ways, or, put it on speakerphone or something like that. So that's cool. That's a good tip.
If I may, here's another tip. We were at Riverside last year, and right at the beginning of the first round, there was a power failure. Now, everybody else couldn't perform. What I did was I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I told the judge what I was going to do. There was enough light where I was, they could do it. I said, you're going to stand outside the judge's room and project into there and read it. And we got the first round through, and we were still on time. Fortunately, the power came on 45 minutes later, but we were still on time.
That's awesome.
But sometimes you got to think on your feet when that happens, just to let you know. Absolutely.
No, that's a great idea. I love that idea too. I had some other low tech. I think it's on my next slide. Yeah, this next one. I want to make sure that everybody knows that if something does go wrong at your tournament, don't panic. Like, it may be the first time that something crazy has happened to you, but I can guarantee you that some coach that's at your tournament has been through something similar, and it's all good. Like, we're going to get through it together. As the host, your attitude, your composure is everything. So not looking stressed, smiling. You're the host. You should be walking around and making sure that things are going okay. And just having a really good attitude is super important. And you have that army of other coaches that are there to support you, because again, we're so thankful that you've hosted. So just don't sweat that stuff. We'll get through it totally. Some common issues that happen with radio, and we've heard a couple of really great suggestions already. If the judge doesn't have a copy of the prompt, this happens a lot because honestly, it's not the first thing that a lot of people think about. I personally think that this is a pretty low, priority issue. However, having lots of extra copies of those prompts will help with that, and then having a runner that can get it to them. If that absolutely can't happen, it's not the end of the world, and it's totally fine. A mic not working. This happens a lot. That's why having mics that don't have the on-off switch is really important, because usually what happens is a kid will go in and they'll do their piece, and then they'll turn their microphone off, and then the next person that comes in doesn't check that. So having ones without switches is cool, or getting a piece of tape or putting a note on it like, please don't turn this off, is important. I like having some of my tech theater kids sort of on hand on the days of the tournament so that they are familiar with the equipment already and they can help out with that part. If you don't have the equipment, some people have asked, like, should we even offer radio? Yeah, still do it. There are lots of low-tech ways to do this too. One thing that I used to be asked to do a lot when I was at Jeff was to bring a mixer, the microphones, the cables, and the speakers to another tournament. I don't mind doing that at all, and there are likely other people that are in the same boat that would help you out with that. So asking for help is highly encouraged. Karaoke machines, I've seen people use that. I've seen people use like computers with Bluetooth devices, the phones I mentioned. Brent talked about just having the kids stand outside the room and projecting into the room, totally low-tech way. I've even had a situation where we couldn't get the equipment to work, and we were afraid that it was going to hold up the entire tournament. So we've even had the judge and the kid in the same room, but you just have the judge turn around so they're facing the other direction, like against the wall that's opposite of the door. And then you have the kid just kind of sneak in the door, sit down, and face the other way. The only thing you have to be careful of there is making sure that, the other kids can't hear what's going on if it is one of those limited prep sort of things. But are there other ideas for any sort of low-tech solutions to stuff like that? Or you think we covered all of that good stuff?
One thing Ball State did, of all places, who has the highest tech things in the world, is they had the college radio students ran it, and they had the judge in the front of the room looking at a wall, and they brought the student in. The student was behind us, so we still couldn't see them, but we could hear them, and they did it one at a time that way.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that idea too. Yeah. It's obviously having the equipment is good, but if you don't have it, it's totally okay. And again, it goes back to what skills are we trying to teach the kid? Is it that they have to speak electronically some way? Is that part of the skill, or is it just that clear vocal delivery that we're looking for too? So it really all comes down to that as well. So great. All right. So when it comes to radio in the COVID era, if the tournament's virtual, I would recommend doing the news program and just doing it pre-recorded. That's probably going to be the easiest time saver with everything. And I know I'm going to learn about how to do a virtual tournament, and I probably will have one in late January, early February. And for our radio events for that, I likely will just do the news program and have it pre-recorded. That just seems so simple and easy. If you choose to do the limited prep rounds, I think you could still make those work via distance, do like the waiting rooms or the breakout rooms, or, have kids come in like one at a time and then have a supervisor that's there. They share the screen with the prompt and then keep the time and sort of do it that way. Are there other thoughts or ideas as to how to maybe do some of that? And Brent, or anyone else with middle school, do you guys have thoughts on how you might do some of that as well?
We just discussed that this is a new frontier for us. We're still kind of figuring that out right now.
Yeah. And it is for all of us. So I think that having like a connection and a collaboration between the middle and the high school sort of sections with radio, and how we do things differently at the high school level versus the middle school level. I think bouncing ideas back and forth between each other is going to be really critical this year. So I'm going to want to get your guys' information so that we can continue this discussion and chat about it. So, all right. My last thing was just kind of summing everything up, I love radio. I may be biased, being the broadcasting chair for IHSFA, but it's like my favorite event. I wish I did radio when I was a competitor. I didn't, but I love it, and I just want us to continue to do what's best for kids. That's really what the most important thing is. So if you're hosting it for the first time, just make sure you know the prompts, know when things should be posted, double check your equipment list, make sure you're making friends with the right people. Set up the night before so that you save yourself the sweat and the headache the next morning if something isn't working right. Again, if something does go wrong, or when it does go wrong, don't panic. We're all here to help each other out. And as it relates to the COVID stuff, you just got to go with the flow. I've got a really great ag teacher here at Rossville. He always says it's all groovy, baby. And that's how I feel about it too. Like whatever happens, we just go with it and make it work. So it's all about giving awesome, memorable experiences to our kids. And that's the most important thing of anything that we're doing. So I really appreciate you guys coming. And I know that I rushed through this so I could try to get through it in the time that I had. But if you ever have any questions, don't feel free, or don't hesitate. Don't feel free. Don't hesitate to reach out and let me know if you have any questions or comments. So thank you guys.
This is good, Jason. I like the idea of refreshing radio even more because, I mean, it just seems so repetitive at some of the tournaments. So,
right. Yeah,
good.
I agree. Yeah, very cool. Thank you for that, Laura. Appreciate it a lot.
I like the idea of maybe interviewing, because I'm always forgetting to, or I have a newbie who tries to do an interview with a crazy voice or something.
Yeah.
So this would be great to just say, yeah, that's what we're going to do. That's what their instinct is. So let's go with what they want.
So he would do an interview where like he does one voice for the interviewer and then answers himself in a different voice.
Yeah, like in an on the spot.
Yeah,
like,
that's cool.
I just every couple of years I have somebody do that. I'm like, oh yeah, I should have told you don't do that. They hate that.
Yeah, that's cool. I even think that if you do if you did that as pre-recorded, you could even have them like interview their principal or coach and use that as part of that too. So it's very cool.
Like a real person, not like chirp.
Right. Well, again, thank you guys so very much. I know that Dakota's thing is coming up, or it started. I'm actually going to head over there as well. So thanks a bunch, guys. And again, let me know if you have any questions or need anything. Thank you. Bye.